Camp John Hay Golf Club. We appreciate all of you that are locators, homeowners, unit owners, golf club members for attending this town hall type forum meeting, where hopefully we can address a lot of the concerns that we're all very familiar with over the last few months. To my right, far right, I have Attorney Bowman Dapat, counsel for Golf Club, also DEVCO. Boise Iniguez, Executive Vice President of Camp John Hay Development Corporation. Our chairman, Robert John Salva-Pena, and my name is Tim Allen. So at this point in time, we'll turn the proceedings over to our chairman.
Thanks, Tim. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming over, and I hope we can make some announcements with regards to the recent decision of the Court of Appeals. And I guess more importantly is to answer your questions, if any. So I guess let's start. First of all, we're really happy and pleased with the decision of the Court of Appeals. We received a copy of the decision last week, late last week, and we were very pleased with the decision of the Court of Appeals. They basically granted a lot of our petitions that was pending in the Court of Appeals. And just as a little background, the entire case started with the dispute between CJH DEVCO and BCBA. And CJH DEVCO basically filed for arbitration against BCBA for breach of contract. The arbitral commission actually arrived at a decision after 9 months of deliberation, and the arbitral decision basically stated, and by the way, there were only two parties, and this is where it really is quite astonishing as to why there was a bigger group that was included in this. The arbitral decision only involved John Hay DEVCO and BCBA. And because by agreement, if there is a dispute, then both parties should submit themselves to arbitration. And nowhere in that arbitral proceedings were the third-party locators, homeowners ever involved. In the end, the arbitral decision basically decided that both parties were in breach. BCBA was in breach for not putting up the one-stop shop action center, or what we call the OSAC, and for not giving CJ DEVCO permits to develop. DEVCO, on the other hand, was also in breach because it suspended payments and therefore also went into breach. So there was what they called mutual breach. And as a result, the arbitral panel decided that since you're both in breach, then we should have a rescission of the contract. A rescission of the contract simply means that from that date of the arbitral decision, moving forward, the original lease agreement between both parties are rescinded. And what that really means is everything that happened before that is still valid, binding, and legal. It's everything that happens thereafter, wherein the agreement is rescinded and therefore no longer in effect. Now, the rescission had a simple concept. First, BCDA should return all monies paid by CJ DEVCO to the BCDA, and that amounts to about 4.621 billion pesos over the last 18 years. On the other hand, CJ DEVCO will vacate. Once paid, it will vacate Camp John Hay. And it was quite simple, straightforward, and that's all the decision really made mention of. And so, and of course, all improvements in the camp would now be turned over to Camp John Hay, to BCDA, once DEVCO is paid and has vacated. Now, it sounded real simple. I mean, we in Camp John Hay DEVCO understood it quite clearly. You pay us, we vacate, we turn it over to you, but you must respect the third parties because they were not a party to this arbitral decision, and they were all buyers in good faith. However, BCDA had another interpretation. Their interpretation was, well, first of all, we don't have to pay CJ Devco before we ask you to vacate. We will ask you to vacate, and then whether we pay you or not, it depends on your collection efficiency. So that was the first problem with the BCDA interpretation. Next, their interpretation is, since it says we own all the buildings and improvements, that means everybody has to vacate. All third parties, all locators, all homeowners, all golf sharemen, everybody. Of course, it never said that. You can own a building, but of course, if that building is encumbered to somebody, then you must respect the encumbrance. The encumbrance meaning somebody else owns it. In this case, all of you here, all of us here in the room, have to one degree or another encumbered some form of asset in this camp. A house, a condominium, a share, whatever. No? And that means they should respect all of this until 2046. But the BCDA's opinion, interpretation was that's not the case. Since we will take over the facilities, everybody must be evicted. So this is where the big problem happened. And it went to the Baguio RTC. BCDA agreed for implementation of the arbitral decision. We agreed for implementation, but when it got to the RTC, that's where all the differences came out. Now, when the Baguio court, the Baguio RTC under Judge Archol it decided to basically implement in full the arbitral decision. Although it did not clarify that the payment should be simultaneous with the move to vacate, because it merely repeated what the arbitral decision said. And so there, again, it was subject to interpretation. The Baguio court also did not say anything about the third parties being evicted. In the judgment of the Baguio court, it merely said that all locators, all homeowners, everybody, all third parties in John Hay will be covered by the rules and obligations and contracts. And to us, what that meant was there should be due process to third parties. It will be governed by rules on contracts and obligations. So far so good, as far as the Baguio court was concerned. However, this is where the problem happened. When the sheriff, ex-officio sheriff of RTC Baguio court, implemented the writ of execution against Camp John Hay Devco, it became completely different. Number one, it asked Devco to vacate, even without payment. Secondly, and this is the worst thing, and the shocking thing, is they asked all of us here to be evicted. And nowhere in the court of decision was it said there or mentioned that we should be evicted. Nowhere in the arbitration was it mentioned, but all of a sudden, in the sheriff's writ of execution, it now mentioned that Devco should vacate along with its sublessees. Okay? And this is where the whole thing basically fell apart. Devco in turn went back to the Baguio RTC court and said, we want this clarified. It is our position that the third parties must be respected, the locators must be respected, and at the very least be given due process, which is a constitutional right of any citizen in this country, of anybody in this country. Now, and of course the other one is that we should be paid and then we will vacate. We gave this to the Baguio RTC court. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, the Baguio RTC judge sat on that decision. We were coming very close to the end of the deadline given by the sheriff. I guess all of you saw those notices on your doors, all over the place. You know, some of you even went as far as packing your belongings and putting it in the car and and of course sleepless nights for so many people here. And to our shock and amazement, the judge from the RTC court went on vacation at that very critical period where we were waiting for this decision to clarify the matter. Instead of giving us a decision, she went on a 1-week vacation. And the time she would come back would be a day or two before the deadline. So we said, this is crazy, this is too late. So at that point, since we had run out of time with the Baguio RTC court, our position was that the fact that she did not rule on it when she should have, and the fact that she went on vacation at this very crucial time, we take that as a decision already. That she's actually, a non-decision is practically a decision against us. So we brought it up to the Court of Appeals. Now that's how we got here. So we told the Court of Appeals that there was grave abuse of authority, because nowhere in the arbitral decision did it say the third party should be evicted. Nowhere in the RTC court decision did it say that the third party should be evicted. And yet in the sheriff's letter, everybody was being evicted, including third-party locators and homeowners. So we said this is grave abuse of authority. And of course, we asked the Court of Appeals to rule, to make now explicit, specific rulings on all of the issues concerning CJ DevCo and the third parties. Now, once we filed that matter in the Court of Appeals, a lot of you, homeowners, investors, locators, golf share owners, joined in the petition in the Court of Appeals by way of intervention. So a lot of you, there were about 65 of you who actually signed the manifest and were represented and joined the hearings in the Court of Appeals. Asking for the same thing, the clarification on the matter of the status of their homes, investments, and businesses in Camp John Hay. So that brings us now to this decision. I'd like now to just read to you the highlights of this decision, and as quick as possible, and then maybe after this we can entertain some questions. First of all, as to CJH Development Corporation. Okay, so on the matter of DevCo and its petition, RTC of Baguio Branch 6 under Judge Corazon Dulay Archog, the ex-officio sheriff of Baguio, who is Attorney Linda Montes Loloy, the sheriff of RTC Branch 6, Bobby Galano, are ordered to cease and desist from enforcing the April 14, 2015 writ of execution and April 20, 2015 notice to vacate until CJH DevCo is fully paid the amount of 1.421 billion. Okay, so that's the first thing. Cease and desist, they cannot vacate us. Secondly, CJ DevCo is ordered to promptly vacate and cease operations on the leased premises upon payment of its claim of the amount of 1.421 billion pesos with the Commission on Audit. So that means we need to have a Commission on Audit approval together with a check for us to vacate. You pay us with a COA approval and then we vacate. The BCDA is ordered to assist the processing of the claim of CJ DevCo filed with the Commission on Audit. They're supposed to assist us. I'm not really counting on this. Okay. And finally, rescission under Article 1191, which serves as the bedrock of the arbitral award, is predicated upon the reciprocity of the obligations of the parties. They are to be performed simultaneously, such that the performance of one is conditioned upon the simultaneous fulfillment of the other. So this is referring to the payment, simultaneous payment. In our language, it's called kaliwaan. Here's the money, you vacate. So in short, everything we asked for from the CA was granted. And this is all we said. Pay us and we will vacate. So that matter is now final and it's been put to rest by the Court of Appeals as far as DELCO is concerned. Now, I'd like to move forward to the third parties. As to the third parties, petitioners, intervenors, homeowners, unit owners, and I suppose that's mostly all of you here this afternoon. The third parties are possessors in good faith and for value of the units in the leased property. They have valid contracts with CJ DevCo despite the fact that CJ DevCo is not the owner of the land on which their property is built. A building by itself is a real or immovable property distinct from the land on which it is constructed and therefore can be a separate subject of contracts. This is precisely what happened here, where CJ DevCo entered into contracts of sale with petitioner, intervenors, third parties over its improvements on the leased properties. The deeds of sale entered into by petitioner, intervenors with DevCo appear to be contracts of sale of improvements subject to a resolutory 50-year term. Petitioner intervenors are entitled to a legal presumption of just title considering their status as lawful possessors of the improvements which they purchased in good faith and for value for CJH DevCo. Civil Code 539 therefore affords them the right to be respected in their possession during the term set forth in the limited warranty deed. And that means up to 2046. Okay? So this is so clear now. The petitioner, intervenors, being possessors in good faith and for value, have rights to be protected from the effects of rescission of the original lease agreement between BCDA and CJH DevCo. It is admitted that the petitioner intervenors were neither included nor informed of the arbitral proceedings. As a consequence of the non-inclusion of their rights in the final award, petitioners cannot be covered by the order of confirmation of final award, writ of execution, and notice to vacate. The principle that a person cannot be prejudiced by a ruling rendered in an action or proceeding in which he has not been made a party thereof applies in strict sense, in conformity with the constitutional guarantee of due process of law. It is so patent and gross as to amount to an evasion of positive duty for RTC Baguio Port Branch 6 to include petitioner intervenors in the notice to vacate that result in the taking of property without due process. A writ of prohibition is issued permanently, restraining RTC Baguio Port under Judge Archog, ex officio sheriff, Attorney Loloy, sheriff of RTC branch, Bobby Galano, from enforcing and implementing the 27-2015 order, April 14, 2015 writ of execution, and April 20, 2015 notice to vacate against all third parties.
That's pretty good.
Your house is safe. BCDA ordered to respect and do not disturb the contracts of third parties occupying the leased premise. So even BCDA has been ordered to respect all of your units, all of your properties in Camp John Hay. So this is basically the ruling and the highlights of the ruling. So it's quite clear now that the Baguio RTC, and that was quite, it's not so good for the Baguio RTC because it was called almost gross negligence on their part, no? That they actually included all of you in that petition. And we're really happy that the Baguio RTC, the Court of Appeals has rendered this decision. It's extremely clear, it's valid, it's binding upon all. And even after CJ DevCo is gone from here, BCDA has to respect your contracts And of course, the Baguio court has already been ordered to refrain from trying to evict or vacate anybody here in Camp John Hay. By the way, is there anybody here from Cap Trade, or, because there's another provision, I'm just seeing if there's anyone here from Cap Trade and the golf club. We'll go through the golf club since we're using their facility now. Basically the same, by its own acts or omissions, BCDA is bound to respect the contracts of CJ Devco entered into with Cap Trade and Camp John Hay Golf Club. Cap Trade entered into a lease contract with Devco to develop convention center of the leased property and is permitted to use this under the original lease agreement. BCDA knew the convention center was constructed and for the longest time never informed Cap Trade of any legal defect or infirmity of the contract of lease. Thus, it can be logically concluded that Cap Trade entered into the said contract in good faith and for value, in the absence of any objections from BCDA. CJH Golf Club acquired its beneficial rights to the use and the possession of the golf course through the deed of assignment executed with CJ Devco pursuant to the original lease agreement between CJ Devco and BCDA, a copy of which was furnished the latter through its subsidiary John Hay PowerPoint Development Corp. Notably, the lease agreement mentions that the leased property shall be used as a golf course cluster. By virtue of the deed of assignment, CJH Golf has been in peaceful possession of the golf club for the past 15 years. BCDA has neither raised any objection to CJ Golf's occupation therein, nor to the validity of the deed of assignment. CJH Golf Club and Cap Trade are not bound by the arbitral award. Their right to due process was violated when the RTC Baguio Branch 6 and its sheriff sought to enforce and execute an arbitral award against them. Due process dictates that the final arbitral award, like any court decision, can only be binding on a party to the litigation and not against innocent third parties. Cap Trade and John Hay Golf Club were total strangers to the arbitration proceedings between Devco and BCDA, and to order them to vacate the premises over which they persistently claim to have rights of possession would be tantamount to deprivation of their property without due process of law. As clarified by Article 1385 of the Civil Code, so long as the person who is in legal possession of the property did not act in bad faith, rescission cannot take place. Thus, in all instances, as to third person of legal possession in question property, good faith is presumed. Cap Trade and Camp John Hay Golf Club, being third persons in good faith, should not be affected by the pronouncement regarding mutual restitution and final arbitral award. The April 14 writ of execution, April 20 notice to vacate, issued by RTC Baguio Court, Judge Cecilia Archog, are hereby annulled and set aside insofar as they are being made to apply to Cap Trade and Camp John Hay Golf Club. A writ of prohibition is issued permanently, restraining Baguio Court Judge Cecilia Archog, Sheriff of Baguio, Attorney Montes Loloy, Sheriff RTC 6 Bobby Galano, from enforcing and implementing the writ of execution and notice to vacate. BCDA is ordered to respect and not disturb the contracts of third parties occupying the leased premises. So basically, this is again a similar approach to basically the Cap Trade building and this facility, the golf club. So again, we're extremely pleased with the decision, and we're happy to announce that everybody's properties and interests are now safe in Camp John Hay. Camp John Hay Devco has fought for your rights, as we felt it was even more important than the collection of the 1.4 billion because it violated constitutional rights and the legal right to due process. But more importantly, it was also a fight against a public official, a government and public official who used his position for his own reasons and basically abused the authority that went with his office in doing this to everyone, private sector, in homeowners, golf share owners, locators, investors in Camp John Hay. It was shocking that a government official would actually turn against its own citizens in a very illegal fashion and use and bully and use its office to bully its own citizens in trying to deprive them of their hard-earned money and, more importantly, their properties without due process. So that's the other reason we are fighting this, because we want to prove that a public official who is abusive in his post cannot get away with it, and that the rule of law still prevails here in Baguio City and in Camp John Hay. Yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to say a few words. I believe that Mr. Sobrepena has very well articulated the decision, the legal decision that just came out from the Court of Appeals. And all I'd like to do is say that this today is not just a victory for all of us. It's also vindication from the position that we have held over the past couple of months, past couple of years for that matter. And the right to due process of law, which I guess was followed here clearly. And again, this victory is not ours, this victory is yours. Whether you're a unit owner, a homeowner, a resident, a golf share owner, this is your victory. And we all feel vindicated about that. And we thank you for your support, and we will continue to support all of you, whatever it takes. Okay, thank you. I would like to, at this point, open it up for questions. I'm sure many of you have questions, so there's a mic up front, so please feel free to start asking questions.
First of all, thank you that we can stay and exercise our rights as unit owners. It is a victory for all of us. But still, we know next year will be election day. And you said when you or if you receive the money, 1.42 billion, and you will be out. Do we have or could we have a legal counselor that will be there to support us, to stand with us, to fight for us? Because I know when we will be here, you will leave us alone. Alone. And somebody sits next year by the BCDA, let's say another officers. Who will help us then?
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Your name, ma'am? Sorry.
Mrs. Dalupe from Forest Cabin 23A.
Okay, thank you. First of all, DevCo will not leave you alone. Okay, you were introduced to this project, to this property through Camp John Hay DevCo. We will continue to fight for your rights even when we are no longer here under our management. We will not be totally gone because we will continue to manage the golf club. I'm the chairman of this golf club, by the way. We will continue to be in management of the hotels. We will be in management of the convention center. So I also have a home here. So I'm never leaving. And so we are not really leaving. What DevCo is actually turning over is the collection of garbage, the grass cutting in the common areas, the security of the main gates, But as far as the actual management of all of these facilities, it will be continuously under us. So we will not be leaving. We will be here all the way to 2046. We will be with you, and we will fight for your rights all the way. Okay? And so you don't have to worry about that, because we feel very much responsible for all of you being here, and as such, we will fight for your rights. By the way, one thing you might want to do is talk to either Boise or Shen or Tim. There is a Camp John Hay Association that we are, encouraging everybody to be a member of, because that association will now take over the role of maintaining the roads, the security of the residential areas. Okay, so a lot of the functions that DevCo was doing, we're turning it over to the Camp John Hay Association. And we're even inviting any of you to be a member of that board. And that will now be responsible for continuing the maintenance of the whole facility, so that we can be sure it's maintained in the same fashion. Okay? Don't worry about funding. John Hay DevCo will help with the funding of this, but we would like to transfer the maintenance to this association immediately, so that even after we vacate, that association will remain as your association, who will be responsible for security, maintenance, and all of that, and keep the camp in proper order. So that's one thing I'd like to encourage everybody. Just sign up as membership, and this association will take care of you, all of us.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Don Rocco, Gulf Club Share member. Thank you for asking the first question and for addressing the first question, obviously. I have two things. So you did say something about the continuity of the protection of the members and the unit owners and everybody else. No? My question is, what is, after you get paid, where does the money go to actually? That's the first question.
The money actually goes to CJH DevCo, Camp John Hay DevCo. Yes.
Okay, and then, so it stays with DevCo.
DevCo will continue to do projects. We might even do some projects in the camp, because we have access to some properties that are inside the camp that we will probably develop. It might also do projects right around Camp John Hay or in the Baguio City area. So it will continue to be in Baguio as a developer.
So would you say DevCo would continue as John Hay DevCo?
It will continue as John Hay DevCo.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. My second question is, what exactly are you turning over? You did say the garbage and the security facility. So are you turning over any physical, assets?
Yes, okay. When we say turnover, actually the operative word is vacate. That's the word that's always used. So if we understand the meaning of that word, what it really means is that our guards, who are now on the gates, on the perimeters, on the roads, everywhere, will all basically consolidate its forces in the Manor Hotel, the Lodge Hotel, the Cap Trade Center, and the golf club. Okay? And if the Homeowners Association wants to continue with the security services that we have, the same group, then they can continue servicing the gates in the respective villages. You know, the Country Home Gate, the Forest Cabin Gate, Commander's Cottage, so on and so forth. That can still continue to be under the same security. If the association, whom you will be members of and whom you will be, basically you will be the board of directors there, can continue those services. But the BCDA will now take over the main gates, the common areas like the roads, the forested areas. It's now going to be their job to clean, to cut the grass, collect the garbage, pay the utilities, everything that CJ DevCo used to do, or is still doing up to now.
Okay, thank you very
Maybe the
much.
offices would be the only.
Yes.
Next question.
Yes, please.
I'm Tony Spirito, a member of COPJANE. The first thing I would like to ask from the chairman or any officer from the head table is a copy of the Court of Appeals decision. We would like to go over it.
Yes, by the way, on that, we would like everybody to just leave your email address. We will email you the 67-page document. Plus, we will email you the highlights, which I just read to you. We will email both documents to you immediately as soon as we get your email address. So please leave us, all those who want a copy of the full decision, which I encourage everybody to have, as well as the highlights, please leave your email address with us.
I would suggest that JANE would print copies for the members so that everyone will be appraised of the nature and impact, the effect of that decision on the members as well as concessionaires. So we can have our own personal study on the matter.
Again, for those of you with email addresses, give it to us. We'll email that to you because you can have it just like that.
Do we have a copy now here in?
If you want a printed copy, I think you can ask Tim to print you us because it's quite a big copy.
But I will be the one responsible in having it
Yeah.
photocopied or Xerox copy.
Sure, no problem. Tim will assist you in that.
My second question is, how long will John Hay be the manager of this entity?
The decision is quite clear, all the way to 2046.
2046.
46.
Is that contained in the?
That's the original lease agreement. That's all our contracts are up to 2046. Plus another 25 years, it says, if both parties agree. But I'm not sure if both parties will agree. So since there is already a rescission. So at this point, it's just 2046.
But of course, we all agree that the Court of Appeals decision is not final. The opposing parties can always bring it to the Supreme Court.
Yes,
There's a possibility of reversal of that decision of the Court of Appeals.
Let me clarify one thing. The arbitral decision, okay, that basically says payment to vacate, like I mentioned earlier, all the decisions in the arbitral decision is final and executory. Not even the Supreme Court of the Philippines can reverse that. It is irreversible, it is final, it is executory.
So it underwent an arbitration?
The arbitral decision is final and no courts in the country, including the Supreme Court, can overturn that. Now, secondly, the Court of Appeals decision that clarifies all these things actually can be changed, modified, or reversed by the Supreme Court. Yes. But then the Supreme Court is only acting on a very, very narrow band. When you bring something to the Supreme Court, it can only act on matters of law, not on the merits. Okay? So the way that the justice system works is that the merits are basically handled by the lower courts and the Court of Appeals. These are the courts that basically, by the way, I'm not a lawyer. I have so many lawyers, I'm beginning to talk like one. But I have a lawyer here on the right. Mom, please come in here and tell me if I'm saying anything.
You talk like a lawyer.
Okay, so, but the merits are basically discussed and decided upon by the lower courts, the arbitral courts, and the RTC courts, and in this case, the Court of Appeals. When it goes up to the Supreme Court, it's only questions of law that can be questioned here. Now, what are the questions of law here? Number one, the law of due process. Will you think the Supreme Court will reverse the law on due process? That is a constitutional right of every citizen in this country. Secondly, and that is the basic thing that is governing your rights is third. Second, buyers in good faith. That is another law. Undoubtedly, you are all buyers in good faith. Third, parties to the agreement. If you are not a party to the agreement, you cannot be bound by the decision of that hearing. None of us, third parties, were a party to the arbitral decision. So how can we possibly be evicted based on a ruling that did not involve us? These are the basic laws. If you really analyze it, I can't see how the Supreme Court can overturn any of this, because these are basic fundamental laws in this country. The Supreme Court will intervene and reverse and change if fundamental laws are violated. But here it's so clear. That's why actually in the hearings, Justice Tihan was saying that these are all very fundamental, basic laws that we are talking about. Due process, the buyers in good faith, parties who are not involved in a case being dragged into a case, right? So on the third parties, solid, extremely solid. On our case, DevCo, just compensation. You can't even buy a bottle of water without paying for it, much less the whole Camp John Hay. So how can you say, I'm going to get this water, I'm going to drink it? Oh, by the way, let's talk about payment later on. Doesn't work that way. So our position is also in our minds and in the minds of the justices of the Court of Appeals, fundamental just compensation. So although they have the right to go to the, what I'm trying to say is, although they have the right to go to the Supreme Court, on matters of law, which is the only basis for reversal in the Supreme Court, we're extremely strong. So, although again, it could drag to that, and I believe BCDA will definitely go to that extent. But we are on very solid grounds. And by the way, John Hay will continue to fight that fight all the way to the Supreme Court for you, for all of you.
Can we have also the coverage of the arbitration proceedings, which has become final?
Okay. Now this one, I suggest we email this here. This is about 274 pages.
Wow.
274. By the way, on the arbitral decision, the arbitral decision is just between two parties, CJ DevCo and BCDA. We will need the approval or consent of BCDA for us to give a copy of the arbitral decision, because it's just between the two of us. It's a private document. However, if you will read the decision that we will be giving to you of the CA, it actually quotes all the relevant provisions from the arbitral decision. So it's there in the decision.
So how can we access the coverage of the arbitration proceedings? The final arbitration judgment.
The arbitral decision can only be accessed or looked at with the consent of both parties, unfortunately, which is BCDA and CJ. No problem with CJ DevCo, but strictly speaking, legally speaking, BCDA will have to consent to that being made public and to whom it will be made public to. So I'm not sure they're going to be very cooperative with us in showing this document around. So I would suggest read the decision of the CA. It quotes extensively from the arbitral decision.
In my final comment, I would agree with DevCo that whatever corporation that will take over in the management of everything here in John Hay must respect whatever rights created already. That's provided for the civil code as well as in the corporation code. So that's what I'm telling to my friends, that we will be respected. So finally, we heard from you that there is this arbitration already and a decision of the Court of Appeals, which I would like to go over if I will be given a copy.
Sure. We'll give you a copy immediately after this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, clarifications, comments, statements? Okay, so if there are no more questions, I think we've just about discussed all the matters, no, Shen? Anything that you want to add, Shen, or in terms of the operations of the camp?
Adding to the association that we are forming, and mainly the Camp Jane Homeowners and Locators Association is right now in process already, because we want to make sure that the team, the people we have put together who have provided services can continue to provide services to the homeowners regardless of DEFCO here or not. So we are working on that direction. We will have actually several residents who are part of the association. We will also be doing, aside from the association board, a management committee who's going to even look into the day-to-day operations of the camp. So all of that thing is in pipeline, and when that thing happens, I think we are talking about more permanency in services. So it will no longer be DEFCO, but it will be like a homeowners association, just like any other subdivision, which will be owned and controlled and run by the residents.
It's registered resident,
Yeah, it's actually already registered already with the SEC. We are just forming up the details and the program, the organization, the functions, all of those things. So that's thing ongoing right now.
Yeah, we really encourage all of you to be a member of this, because we would want to leave this as an organization and institution that will guarantee the continued maintenance of Camp Jane as we are used to it and as we envisioned it to be. No? When I took over this camp, the maintenance, which was under government at that time, oh my God, the grass was never cut, the garbage was never collected, it was terrible here. So we don't want it to go back to that state. We want to be sure it's maintained the way it is. And this association, its sole objective is to see to that, to see to it that the maintenance is implemented on that level. By the way, that association may also put up a consultancy with some lawyers, so that in the event homeowners and members need legal advice and representation, the association can also help.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add to the question about what is DEFCO is going to turn over? There are a couple of other things. The DEFCO, the Master Development Plan says 20 hectares of footprint development, out of which we only develop 4 hectares. The rest of the all undeveloped portion, we will be turning back to the government if and when we get paid 1.4 billion pesos.
Yes. By the way, while we're here, I just to say, sometime in the recent past, the BCDA tried to convince is not really the right word, right? Maybe coerce, force, threaten some of you here. I know some of you here were talked to sign this document, this deed of assignment document. I just hope you didn't sign this document, because it in reality it puts your property in danger. And if the BCDA ever comes to you asking you to sign this document, and maybe just a little background, they were asking our homeowners, members, investors to sign a deed of assignment. The homeowner as assignor and the BCDA as assignee, assigning them the rights to your house, your property, or whatever. And they in turn would assign it back to you up to 2046 at commercial terms to be discussed. You may even have to buy your house back all over again. Okay? And the condition is that you will become a party to a lawsuit against DEVCO. That they will file a lawsuit against DEVCO and try to claim back some money from DEVCO and all of that. Now there were, I believe, some who signed this, unfortunately. But you see, this document is patently illegal. As a matter of fact, anyone who signs this document can be subject to an anti-graft case. Because if a property is given back to government cannot sign it back to you. It has to be bidded out. There has to be a public bidding. So you could effectively lose your house, your property, your asset, your investment if you sign that. The CA decision clearly says you own that. BCDA has no right But if you ever sign that document, you have just given your house away. And the way you procured it back from BCDA is illegal. It's anti-graft. It was taken without bidding. Anyone can question that now. So I would strongly suggest that anyone who has friends or knows of or whatever, people who actually signed this document, you gotta tell them, find a way to get out of that. Shred it, tell BCDA to burn it, because that's an illegal document. And it may put your asset, even yourself, in legal harm's way. So just a caution for all of you. Right now, that with the CA decision, clearly you own this property, BCDA must respect it. So, and if you have friends who went through that extent, then unfortunately for them, but hopefully they can find a way to extricate themselves out of that. Okay?
Just one more question.
Just one more question. I'm wondering what is the function or purpose of the homeowners association?
The homeowners association will be there to basically take care of, well, first of all, right now CJ Delco collects CUSA, right, to maintain the camp. And by the way, just to let you know, the CUSA that we collect is not even enough to maintain the camp. CJ Delco has been subsidizing the maintenance here for many years, and it continues to do so. But what we would like to do is transfer the maintenance, number one, the security of the residential clusters. You have a security in the country home area, the forest cabin area, the forest estate areas, the outposts. And that's, the association will continue to man the security on those outposts. Secondly, we'll make sure that maintenance inside those residential clusters are done to a level that is satisfactory to the homeowners. Because when BCDA takes over, we're not sure if they're going to cut the grass once a day as we do. We're not going to be sure if they're going to collect the garbage twice a day as we do. We're not sure what they're going to do at all. And to assure the residents and the clusters that the maintenance, the garbage, and all of that will be kept up to a high standard, then the association will see to it that kung kulang yung ginagawa ng BCDA, if there's not enough that BCDA is doing, then the association will augment to be sure that it remains in the same level of maintenance. And then finally, the association, I think, because of what has happened to us, will have some legal advisors, such as the law firms who have been winning all our cases for us and who know this in and out. This law firm will be a consultant to the association on all legal matters, whether to protect your homes or to fight for your rights or just legal advice on moving forward.
I just wonder what would be the legal status of this homeowners association, because if there would be a turnover, I believe the corporation or a company that takes over would immediately manage the place.
Yes, that's a matter that will be discussed with the association and BCDA. The DevCo has to vacate, which is why DevCo will not be part of that association. The association is made up of all the residents. If you go to any subdivision, any condominium, there is always an association. So the association represents you. I don't think BCDA can represent you. I don't think we would like BCDA.
That's precisely what I'm trying to point out.
So the
If
association.
BCDA will not recognize the homeowners association, then it would be inutile.
I think the association representing third parties and homeowners has a right to be in the camp because they are an extension of the homeowners. By the way, I believe you're a lawyer.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I would probably invite you to sit down with our legal advisors so they can go into detail with you as to the legalities of how the Homeowners Association, being an extension of the third-party investors here serving the public, its public, can coexist with the BCDA when they take over. That it can actually coexist. Because the only one asked to vacate is DevCo. There was no ruling for the John Hay Association of third parties, homeowners, locators, investors to be vacated.
Yes, sir. But it is the responsibility of the corporation that will take over to assume management.
Yes, and
So
they
they
will.
should manage the place.
They will. But again, well, we'd like to invite you to discuss that in more detail with our law. Are you based here, sir, or are you in Manila?
I am from Baguio.
Okay, so
Baguio boy.
we will invite you to.
Born in Baguio.
Okay, good. Very good. So we'll invite you to sit down with them, and perhaps you can join that association as well, so you can help with the legal advice and all of that.
Well, I'll think about it.
Well, we invite any and
Thank
all
you.
of you who want to serve in that association to participate, even in the board, the management, or just being a member. No.
Mr. Chairman, if I just to add, there are two functions here in the camp. The administrator, let's say, which BCDA, when they take over, they'll be managing all the common areas, the main road, the forest, and everything. Remember, the whole Jani is 247 hectares. Majority of it is the forest. And BCDA will need to manage the forest and all the main roads and street lights and utilities. Meanwhile, association is focused specifically on the areas which are assigned to the residents. So there are clusters like Forest Cabin area, which is approximately around 6 hectare area. The 6 hectares is owned by all those 50 plus Forest Cabin owners. Hanggang doon lang yung association. Just like in Country Home, that area only, Voice of America. But outside all that area is common area which is to be managed by the administrator. Just to add something.
That is with the presumption that whoever takes over will not take good care of Jani.
Yes, yes. Well, the association will make sure to it, let's just say that the maintenance is done on that level. No? And again, granted there are discussions that will have to be done, and maybe it will even have to go to court to exercise its right. But, you know, we've gone to court and won all our court battles in BCDA. I can't see why we can't win this one.
My main worry is if BCDA will not recognize the existence of the homeowners association, there will be conflict.
Well, then we will take them to court.
And
insist on the rights.
Soon, court, soon,
Yeah. Yes.
in order to protect the rights of the
In order to protect
and
the rights of the property owners, to be sure that security and maintenance is kept to a certain level.
For many years we have all this litigation, we are at home in all the courts nowadays.
Kind of to that end, when it comes to protecting the rights, we had this discussion amongst, I know, the golf club members a couple of times over the last few months, that our rights seem to be very clear in the fact that we were not mentioned in the arbitration decision. However, as it became apparent that our rights were going to be somewhat impaired upon by the BCDA in this particular case, then we would have no choice but to make a stand for those rights. And that is what not only DevCo did, but the golf club did as an intervener in standing up for our rights to make sure that our 1,100 members and all shareholders their rights were protected. And we will always obviously do that.
I just want to add last thing on this. You know, the BCDA tried to take out all of the village outposts. Remember, we put the village outposts because, you know, Camp John Hay is a huge park. It's a public park. The public comes here in their vans, they go picnicking, they walk around, they take pictures all over the place. We were getting comments from homeowners that they were losing their privacy because people were going into their garages, taking pictures, you know. And so we put these outposts so that all those picnickers and people who come here for the environment can do so in the forests and the picnic grounds and the public areas, but they're not allowed past the guardhouse of the residential. And that's why we have those outposts in all of the residential clusters. When BCDA, that period of time where there was a gray area, notices to vacate were given, BCDA actually took down all of those security outposts. They wanted everything cleared and open. And we refused, we resisted, and we put them back. As a matter of fact, they stole all of our barricades and street barricades. They just took it, and we're now filing a case of theft against them. So, you know, we're here, we're committed for your security, your peaceful possession of your properties, as you know you have been through the years. And we're afraid that BCD does not share our vision and our commitment to our residents. And that's why we're really pushing for this association to take over the role of John A. Delco, but in this time on behalf of the residents and homeowners. Okay. Okay, so I think we have a little merienda here, no? Sim, meron ba? Okay, so we'd like to invite everybody for some snacks. And if you have any other questions, I'll be around to answer them on the floor. Thank you very much for coming.